I am Josiah Neeley. I'm a senior fellow in energy with the R Street Institute. Welcome to our event today. We're going to be talking about energy policy in the States, what's been going on. And obviously, there's been a lot of energy news this year and recently. A lot of the media focus on energy is focused at the federal level, whether it's the IRA or the big beautiful bill, subsidy changes, or nuclear policy with the Advance Act, and that's perfectly understandable. But uh, a lot of energy policy gets made at the state level, and there's a lot of things that are happening at the states that are very interesting, whether it's electricity or infrastructure, other sorts of things. So I was very excited to get together a group of policy experts from the states to talk about what is going on there. And originally, my vision was that we could do a comprehensive 50 state focus, but I was informed that if we had 50 panelists, each one would have about 45 seconds. So instead we have very discerningly gathered a group of people from some key states where stuff is going on to talk about what's going on in their states, and I think that will have broader implications for the rest of the country. I'm going to I think what we're going to have a back and forth, a kind of an open discussion on a wide range of issues. Just logistically, I do intend to leave some time at the end for audience Q&A. And the way that's going to work is if you have a question, you can post it in the chat, and then I will look at it there, and we'll read it out at the appropriate time. But in the meantime, before we get into the more meat of the discussion, I'd like to just do some brief introductions of everybody. And I'd like so I'm going to introduce each of the panelists and give them a minute or two just to talk about their background and their specific organization. So I'm going to start with Ray Hederman, who is the Vice President of Policy for the Buckeye Institute. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Buckeye?
Yep. Thank you, Josiah. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Ray Hederman, and so I work at the Buckeye Institute. And before that, I was at the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C. And I moved to Ohio basically to bring ideas for prosperity to a state that had been struggling. The Buckeye Institute is Ohio's largest free market think tank. We focus on issues, fiscal policy, healthcare, labor markets, and of course, energy. And energy has been an area we've seen increasing success over the last 10 years as Ohio has moved in a free market direction, rolling back government regulations and red tape. My personal specialties are fiscal policy, healthcare, and energy. And I have a graduate degree from Georgetown University, and my undergrad was at the University of Virginia. And so it's been a great time here at the Buckeye State, being able to connect with people and helping promote policies that make a difference in the lives of everyday Ohioans and their businesses.
Fantastic. And next, let's go to Melissa Landry, who is the Vice President for Strategy. It's strategy, not strategies. Yes, strategy with the Pelican Institute. So tell us about a little bit about your background in the Pelican Institute, Melissa.
Good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you all today. As you mentioned, I'm the newest member, actually, of Team Pelican, based out of Louisiana. Building on the Pelican Institute's previous work in the energy landscape, I recently helped launch Pelican Center for Energy, which is a nonpartisan nonprofit research organization committed essentially to unleashing the power of free market reforms to make Louisiana, ultimately, our goal is to make Louisiana the most energy dominant state in America over the next 10 years. So pretty aggressive goal there. Our mission is really simple, to remove government barriers, enhance market competition, and ignite innovation across all sectors of the energy industry to create jobs, economic opportunity, support American energy independence, and most importantly, to ensure that every Louisianian has access to affordable and reliable energy. So really big goals, very, very important time, to be working on energy policy, particularly in Louisiana. So excited to be with you today and to have this conversation.
Fantastic. And I love the names of all these different state groups, Pelican, Buckeye, Palmetto, so many great evocative names. Next, let's go to Dominic Calabro, who's the president and CEO of Florida Tax Watch.
Thank you, Josiah, and thank you, and my fellow panelists. I'm really glad to be part of this. I'm very honored as well. Florida Tax Watch is a nonpartisan and nonprofit 501c3, both a government watchdog and a think tank. It's a kind of unusual combination. We were formed in 1979. I've been with them since 1980 and really helped build a brand, if you will. It's really there to, the purpose of Florida Tax Watch is to act as the eyes and ears of the taxpayers of Florida, but pretty aggressive. We're not lobbying per se, but we really work hard to not only have good public policy, as many of you folks do, but we also want to make sure that it gets implemented and it helps advance. So we're looking to help advance and protect taxpayers, their health, their freedom, and their prosperity. So two things: we want to make sure that we make Florida attractive to come. Two, that when you are here, not only do you pay lower taxes, but you get a bigger bang for the buck, more impactful outcome from state and local government services.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Dominic. And rounding out the panel, we have my fellow Texan, Griffin Saltron, who is a policy analyst with the Texas Conservative Coalition Research Institute, more commonly known TCCRI. Griffin, tell us a little bit about you and your organization.
Thank you so much for inviting me here today. TCCRI, we're a nonprofit think tank here that focuses on policy in Texas. We're guided by 4 key principles: limited government, individual freedom, free enterprise, and traditional values. If a bill went through or any sort of bill that's going through the legislature, or before it's going through the legislature, we're going to take a look at that and really comb through to see what is good policy for our state and develop some forms of policy that we think that Texas should pass. And hopefully today I can share what our legislature did this last session, and maybe y'all can bring it to your home states as well.
Yeah, well, let's I'm sorry, go ahead. Okay, I thought I heard somebody, but that's just the voices inside my head. Griffin, let's stick with you then, because when I go around and I talk to people in the States, one thing that a lot of people are excited about is nuclear energy. Nuclear energy, of course, was very big for a while in the 50s and 60s, and then it went through kind of a rough patch, I would say. There were no new nuclear plants that came online for many decades. And now there's a lot of excitement about it, about a nuclear renaissance potentially. But there's also a question of what states can do to affect nuclear policy, because of course a lot of regulatory other issues having to do with nuclear power specifically are federal in a way that is not true for a natural gas plant, say, or a wind turbine or whatever. So Texas, I know, you just finished your every other year legislative session, although I think they're still back in session again.
They are back.
Yeah, but not for energy stuff. But they did, during the session, they passed a piece of nuclear energy related legislation, HB 14, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe talk a little bit about that, and then also kind of give your thoughts about what are the appropriate and non-appropriate ways that a state might look at nuclear policy.
Yeah, of course. So as you said, nuclear is very neglected, unfortunately, energy source, and that is has been historically true here in Texas. Right now, there's only 4 active nuclear reactors across our state, but surprisingly, they supply 10% of the energy produced for our grid. Each one of these are a standard nuclear reactor with a capacity of 1 gigawatt per hour. And just like most nuclear, they're reliable, being generally unaffected by weather conditions. So what the legislature did this last go around was pass House Bill 14 by Representative Cody Harris. And this bill supports the development specifically of advanced nuclear reactors. These are things like small modular reactors and microreactors, where they may not have the full 1 gigawatt per hour capacity. Some of them have about 1/3 that generating capacity, but they have other benefits. Some of them are portable, they require less materials, things like that. And so this bill primarily did 2 things of note. One was create a new fund, which I'll get to, but first I want to talk about the Texas Advanced Nuclear Energy Office. This is a new office within our government that'll be providing strategic leadership for advanced nuclear reactor systems here in Texas. They'll be working with higher education, the nuclear energy industry, manufacturers and regulators to craft a public outreach program for this and to ensure the development of advanced nuclear. Identifying some barriers to the financial viability of nuclear energy, and looking at the regulatory and licensing complexities. As you were talking about, the issue when it comes to nuclear is a lot of it is federal regulations, and there's not much states can do from that on in terms of you're not going to roll back federal regulations on nuclear as much. So as a part of this office, the nuclear permitting coordinator position was created. And they'll be assisting these businesses throughout their nuclear energy permitting and regulatory process to help them. Sorry, there's a little bit of feedback.
Okay, I think there was a little feedback, but it's taken care of now.
To help get them through that process and start building. And the reason why they're going to start building is because of the Texas Advanced Nuclear Development Fund, which is the largest investment nationally in nuclear energy. It's $350 million for this biennium, this 2-year period. And it'll be used for 3 different reimbursement-based grant programs. One of them will be for development, things like planning, licensing, and permitting. The next will be for the actual construction. And the last one that I think is the most important is a completion bonus grant, which incentivizes the actual interconnection of these new nuclear facilities to our power grid. And I think that in terms of that regulatory burden, the fund is great. The big part of this bill that I like the most is actually the Advanced Nuclear Energy Office, because that one is a way for the states to get help to these organizations as they try to get through this process. And if you have any other form of regulatory burden on your end at a state level, I think legislatures across the country can work to knock those down. FERC does a well enough job of regulating to where we need to create a new office to help people through it. I think we can try to cut down on some of that here at our local level.
Yeah. You know, things have gotten bad when you need an agency to help people deal with other agencies, but that's we are back to nuclear power. Dominic, let me talk to you. So Florida has, I would say, a lot of advantages, but it's also known for facing a lot of extreme weather risk, whether that's hurricanes, floods, other things. And one thing that I know people are concerned about when it comes to building new generation or maintaining existing generation is, you know, how do we keep it safe from whether it's natural or man-made risks? So what are your thoughts on that in terms of what can we do to keep our energy resources resilient in the face of all sorts of different types of threats?
Well, thank you, Josiah. It's very, very true. I think one of the biggest concerns that Florida Tax Watch has, we've got good pricing, we've got good reliability, we've got good reserves. but we face a lot of obviously natural disasters, particularly some very, very fierce storms, as you know, and realistically, you can't decide where the hurricanes occur and how fiercely they occur. What you can do is harden your infrastructure, harden your facilities, harden homes. Those kind of things are really, really critically important. But I think the big concern we have is from EMP or anything else is protecting the grid. Okay, and I've talked to our board members from Florida Power and Light and Tampa Electric and Duke that, you know, there are, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands, over 1 million attempts to break into, cyber attacks on the grid and on anything related to energy. And it's really critically important. I mean, if something happened, particularly to one of our major ports, seaports like Tampa Bay, I mean, you could literally shut down the economy. I mean, and the health and prosperity, because, we talk about refrigerated food, you talk about grocery stores, you talk about restaurants and, life's necessities. So I think this is an issue, Josiah, and among all of our panelists that really needs to rise to, I think, a national level, and that is what can we do also to try to encourage the protection of our transmission lines and all the production facilities from particularly man-made attacks, from all kinds of besides the cyber, just also just simple man-made attacks. So we're dealing with some crazy people that could do, a lot more damage than somebody unfortunately taking, a gun and shooting people at random. You could shut down major communities very seriously. And so I think that's something a tax which I just did an op-ed that really got some great coverage. But I think really we're looking at is what can the legislature and the Public Service Commission, we've got a very, very good Public Service Commission. They are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Florida Senate. And they've done a pretty good job of trying to avoid high fluctuations in pricing and things of that nature. But I think there's got to be something we have to do to not only strengthen the infrastructure of those affected and served by the electricity grid, but both the grid itself and the transmission of the power and the distribution of that power from both natural, but especially and increasingly man-made disasters. I think it's something that we need to consider on a national level. Florida's not the only one. There's so many other communities that I think in other states that need to be concerned about it. We saw what happened in Texas. Sorry, Griff, I don't want to jump on you or anything, but Florida Tax Watch looked at a proposed constitutional amendment in 2020 that would have deregulated a very significant segment of Florida's energy market served by the investor-owned utilities. And not only did we oppose, but more importantly, we did a very, very thorough and thoughtful economic sophisticated analysis of it that was used to show that the amendment itself was flawed, not just from its policy, but the way it was written, so that the Attorney General, now U.S. Senator Ashley Moody, was able to use the Florida Tax Watch report and have it struck from the ballot. So we've got good things going on here. We don't want to see what happened. And I know, Griff could talk more about what happened in Texas, but in February of 2021, that cold weather event, nearly shut the state down. It was just maybe you could share some of within minutes. And one customer reported a monthly electric bill, I think, of more than $16,000, 70 times their average monthly bill. So, I mean, this kind of, Florida's got so many good things going for it, but we have risks that we've got to be careful of. So the big thing that Florida's facing is, I think Texas to some extent too, is we're facing the problems we have, the problems of our success, particularly land. It's just so expensive. So it's just one of the things we got to be concerned about is the electric grid and all of the things that provide the production, distribution, and transmission of the electricity for our growing population of like 24 million people and 130, 140 million tourists. Sometimes it feels like we have 140 million tourists on the same day. So, so anyway, those are the main concerns, and I think the legislature's listening, but we try not to overreact, and I think it's been wise. We've got a lot of institutional checks and balances, particularly with the Public Service Commission, and frankly, we've got some of the best utilities, in the country in terms of market capitalization and the efficiency by which they are run. So we do have constant fights, if you will, between the users, the retailers and the electric providers as well. But all that's healthy. We've got a very healthy and competitive system, and I think it serves great benefit to the people of Florida.
Yeah. Well, let's stick on the grid for a moment. We happen to have, I think, represented states that have a range of models in terms of their electric system and also in terms of what they're thinking about. And Melissa, if we go to you, I know in Louisiana recently there's an issue with the Public Utility Commission there where they had been looking at the possibility of more competitive options for the electric grid, and recently voted against that. And it also seems that there big price hikes are in store for ratepayers. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that and what's going on in Louisiana.
Yes, thank you. I mean, it is an interesting time, without a doubt. As you know, Louisiana operates as a regulated monopoly, essentially, and that structure, has created some challenges. We have a Louisiana Public Service Commission is an elected body made up of 5 members. And historically, the legislature and the governor have not had a tremendous amount of influence on, electricity utility regulation in the state. As you mentioned, one of the most significant developments earlier this year was the closure, the Louisiana Public Service Commission's vote to kill the docket, which was referred to as the customer-centered options docket. This is a years-long study of market-based reforms, which were really intended to consider a number of pathways to allow the private sector to help diversify and really modernize Louisiana's power system. There is absolutely no question that Louisiana is at a tipping point. As you mentioned, electricity prices have really soared in recent years. Let's see, between the most recent report between 2010 and 2023, the residential price of electricity in Louisiana increased by 28.6%.
Wow.
And the commercial price of electricity increased by 22.9%. Those increases occurred over a period of time, even when demand remained relatively flat. Now, kind of consider where we are now, which is, of course, that the demand for electricity is expected to increase, dramatically over the next 10 years. And so, in fact, I'm speaking you to today, part of my technical challenges, which I apologize again for, but from Ruston, Louisiana, which is a lovely city in North Louisiana, not too far away from Richland Parish, where Meta's new $10 billion facility will be constructed. And of course, that project represents the single largest investment in Louisiana ever, and will bring, obviously tremendous number of jobs and economic opportunities for residents. But it also really it speaks to the urgency with which the Louisiana Public Service Commission, the legislature, and the governor really need to address how we are going to meet the unprecedented demand for electricity over the coming years. The short answer to your question is what needs to happen is the Public Service Commission needs to reopen the consumer centered options docket. That is the only pathway to providing alternatives for the current situation that we are in now. If all of the projects that have been proposed before the LPSC are approved, it is estimated. A recent report from the BAI group has warned and suggested that base electricity rates could rise by as much as 90% by the time we get to 2030. And obviously, that's just not at all an option for Louisiana consumers who need affordable, reliable electricity.
Yeah. Well, Ray, let's bring you into this because electricity prices, I know, are really an issue for people throughout the country. There's been everything that I've seen has been that in a lot of places, electricity prices are rising higher, faster, and more than the general rate of inflation, which is not great for even the general rate. I know there where you are in Ohio, in PJM, you know, they periodically have auctions for their capacity market and for other for the RTO there, and you know the prices of those just keep setting new records, which is not always a good thing. But it's also the case that there in Ohio they have passed legislation aiming at dealing with some issues in the energy sector. HB 15, we talked about HB 14, now we're up to HB 15. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that and what your perspective on what's going on in Ohio and then in PGM and all of that.
Yeah, glad to, Josiah. Thank you for having me. So first, a quick background. Ohio is what is known as a partially deregulated energy state. What that means is that utilities transmit energy, but they are not allowed to generate energy. And so as a choice, you as a consumer can go choose from a variety of different energy plans. You can pick and choose what the base rate you want to pay, how long you want to fix your contract for. Do you want green energy? Are you willing to pay more? What type of company, makes sense? Do they have promotional offers? So the idea is try to use competitive power to keep energy prices low. And that has worked for a long time. I mean, Ohio has actually been on a per capita basis, a huge consumer of energy because Ohio remains a manufacturing state and manufacturing requires a lot of energy. But then you add on the surge of demand from data centers, and Ohio and Central Ohio in particular has building out a lot of data centers. Energy demand has skyrocketed. And as a result, we have seen PJM set record auction prices, 20% higher from the previous record set last summer. And so Ohio consumers saw about a 10% energy hit year over year. Next year, it's going to go up even more due to the capacity auction. But because states have the ability to control a lot of their energy market, other than nuclear, Ohio policymakers prioritized a bill that would boost generation in the state. And the reason is simply economics 101, right? If demand is outstripping supply, prices are going to go up. So we need to take a look at that we are supplying affordable, reliable energy. And unfortunately, for a long time, Ohio was supplying energy that wasn't meeting our needs and demand was going up, so prices were going up. So very quickly, Ohio House Bill 15 said, look, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lower a capital tax called a personal property tax on energy equipment and infrastructure. If you know anything about taxes, taxing wealth and equipment like this and inventory is one of the worst things that you can do to slow the growth of an industry and an economy because every year these companies have to pay taxes on the stock of their equipment. This means that investment takes longer to pay off. That means that new investments don't pencil, they don't meet the rate of return. And so taxing wealth is a great way to slow your economy. And as a consequence, Ohio policymakers said, look, let's go ahead, let's reduce taxes on new energy infrastructure. This is everything from pipelines, transmission wires, to generations, or if you're upgrading plants. And we think that this will speed investment in the energy generation business. The second thing Ohio policymakers did is said, look, let's really look at helping out going to where the need for energy is, a lot of data centers, boosting what's called behind the meter generation. And the idea would be companies, often data centers, but could be a big manufacturing, could be a chip plant that may need their own source of energy. make it easier for them to build new generation on the property as long as they're transmitting energy to the data center or the manufacturing plant. So we wanted to be able to get rid of the regulatory tape, speed that up. They put regulators on a shot clock. That means that companies will have a faster time period that they can have the proposals up for review. So we've seen some cases where proposals have been sitting around before our Ohio Siting Board or in regulatory limbo for years. And the idea is to close that gap and make Ohio regulators more responsive to the company's plans, right? I mean, government should be moving at the speed of business to boost energy because we know demand is growing at the similar rate. There are also three important, I think, pro-consumer reforms. The first is Ohio removed a subsidy to specific energy companies that was costing taxpayers about $1 billion over 10 years, well in excess of $100 million annually, saying, look, at a time when you have record high energy prices, we should not be subsidizing energy companies. At that point, that's just crony capitalism. You're just giving taxpayer dollars away for companies who should be competitive at a time where spot prices are again at an all-time high. So they got rid of that, protecting consumers. The second thing they did is they made it harder for utility companies to basically attach riders and to boost prices without going under review by state regulators. So this was the idea that maybe if you weren't doing anything, you weren't competitively shopping for your energy prices, or energy utilities could put on riders, which are surcharges on your energy bill. Those could be done over a period of time and really kind of escape the glare of regulators. And as a consequence, we saw utilities boosting prices when they really didn't need to. And the third thing is, looking at transparency. So we now require a heat map of the demand for energy in areas. And so the idea would be, because utilities get a lot of their money through transmission and getting rewarded for building out infrastructure, let's take a look and have regulators get information in real time, be able to update inputs to the transparency map to see if, hey, do we really need to build a new pipeline? Do we really need to build new attachment poles and wiring? Or is this a case where maybe the utility is trying to build more so they can get more dollars? And we think those are some strong consumer protections that'll be there. And I think finally, really what this did is it really cemented that Ohio is going to remain competition state on the generation of energy. Again, more people that are generating energy and being able to sell their product on the market means lower cost to consumers. And this establishes a rock solid wall that utilities cannot be in the generation business if they're in the transmission business. And I think the combination of all these plus rolling back subsidies means that Ohioans will still be paying higher energy prices because demand's going up that much, but we'll be paying a lot less than we could, and we'll be moving Ohio more in the direction of energy independence. So instead of relying on electricity flowing from out of state, we'll be able to build Ohio businesses in state and protect our consumers.
All right, fantastic. So I want to ask something, and this is more general, but several panelists I think have made reference to the growth in electricity demand from AI data centers, and of course, it's very interesting. For a long time in the United States, we have had flat or declining electricity demand in most of the country. Because of energy efficiency measures, because of offshoring, other sorts of things. And now, of course, we're in an amazing turnaround where the projections are pretty substantial increases in electricity demand. And of course, that's not all from data centers, from AI. In fact, I was looking at a report recently that the single biggest section of projected increased demand is from industry, reindustrialization. But it is the case that there is a lot of it that comes from these large loads. And, there's some data centers that can have as much electricity demand as a medium-sized city. So I'm gonna throw it to Griffin, but then other panelists, if you have thoughts, I'd like to hear it as well. What do you think are the ways that states should, deal with this great economic opportunity, but also challenge in terms of making sure that we have enough electricity to meet all of the new demand.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing all of us seem to have very different regulatory systems and processes for our energy market. Texas, we're deregulated largely, and we are our own independent on an island grid. Where the Texas grid, it's ERCOT power generation. And so that's come with its own challenges and also its own benefits. One of them is we've got a lot of generation here in Texas, but we also have been seeing that same increase in demand, whether it be our population growth in recent years, our rapidly growing and changing economy from those data centers and AI that we all talked about. Texas has an anticipated additional load of 130 to 150 gigawatts within the next 5 years. For reference, our peak load in 2024 was 86 gigawatts. So we're getting up there in a few short years. To address this, our legislature passed Senate Bill 6 by Senator Phil King. And this one serves these new energy customers like data centers and AI, while maintaining grid reliability for all Texans. So we're looking at things related to some regulatory measures for some proof of financial commitment and demonstrating site control before we're going into interconnection at these facilities, looking at how net metering arrangements operate, and approval of some of those, and also the cost of interconnection itself. I'm sure, as you all know, is quite expensive. So this bill requires the Public Utility Commission to ensure that these large load customers contribute financially to the cost of interconnection, so that isn't put onto the backs of the average Texan. They're financially benefiting from interconnection, so it makes sense instead of it being placed on the average energy bill. And then another part of this bill is developing a reliability service through ERCOT to competitively procure demand reductions from these large load customers for use during emergencies. So things like Winter Storm Uri that we saw a few years ago, any sort of large demand event, ERCOT is designing a system to be able to go to these large load customers and say, hey, can we ask you to ramp down for a little bit so we can use the energy that's being provided here elsewhere? I think these are some really good changes and good processes that we can use moving forward to address this load. We want these businesses to come here. We want data centers, we want AI, we all want those in our states. And we just need to figure out ways to work around with that. I think looking at that interconnection and looking at how these large loads are affecting it and making sure it's not going to cause any critical failure is important for all of our states.
I think,
Okay.
Josiah, in Ohio, we had both utilities and businesses and generators complaining about the timeline of the regulatory process. And, this has been, people on the left have picked up on this as well, that if there are so many delays occurring at every level of the process, then it can make building out a generation, years in advance. So, to walk through, most states starts at the local level where, a plant being built is subject to approval at the local level. Then it goes up through various committees at the state level. And in some cases, you may need federal level approval. So very quickly, what Ohio did, and I think what a lot of people or reforms are people looking at, is shortening the timeline. Localities and committees are often given, 60, 90, 180 days, 365 days to review some new permits for generation. Shortening that timeline can help reduce the regulatory burden. The second thing is basically putting, again, what I call a shot clock, which is if the regulators do not make a decision at the end of a period of time, the approval permit is deemed to be permitted, right? And so basically regulators either have to weigh in or the project goes forward. And I think, those are the things that can help, overcome some of the bottlenecks we've seen occur at basically every level of the government permitting process. And in this case, in Ohio, we made it a law legislatively because I think sometimes that needs to happen to get rid of the bureaucracy that's slow in some of these administrative branches.
Okay, yes. If other panelists have thoughts, but just building off of that as well, I know a big theme of the Trump administration has been unleashing American energy through NEPA reform and permitting reform at the federal level. But a lot of work that we've done here at R Street has identified that actually, for many types of energy, state and local permitting are becoming the major roadblocks, whether that's pipelines, whether that's generation or whatever. So this is something else. If anyone has any thoughts on it, is how do you deal with the permitting challenges so that they do not become the process is the punishment way to try and stop projects by slowing them down, making them too costly and take too long in order to build anything effectively.
Yeah, I'll take this opportunity to actually say something positive and brag on Louisiana just a little bit. We this past legislative session, the legislature, with a lot of support from the governor, actually completely restructured the State Department of Energy, which was a massive undertaking, as you can imagine. And one of the primary motivating factors for doing that was essentially really to be able for the department to really modernize and really be able to expedite the permitting of energy, particularly energy infrastructure projects. And that was woefully needed for a very long time. And so we're excited and enthusiastic about the positive impact that we will see, kind of from that. The legislature also passed a bill that we have two nuclear power plants in Louisiana, and that's been a very big topic of discussion across the country, and certainly the president's been talking about it. The legislature also passed a bill that would that streamlines specifically permitting approvals as it relates to the development of additional nuclear power plants in Louisiana, particularly the small nuclear reactors, and really making it so that state and local permitting is working and in lockstep with, of course, approvals that can typically take a very long time at the federal level. So just being proactive and positioning our state as a place for investment for additional nuclear energy, which is certainly desperately needed. But as I mentioned earlier, we still have major challenges. I mean, specifically, really stemming from the Louisiana Public Service Commission and the complete and total lack of really competition, and that has been and continues to be a huge barrier to both to energy, power generation, transmission. You all may have read that we recently had two blackouts in Louisiana which were relatively unprecedented, and that is just a direct result of lack of proper investment in transmission and infrastructure. That has been enabled by the system that we are currently operating under. There's just no question that what the state needs now more than ever before is more private sector investment, not more centralized control. We absolutely cannot afford to keep shutting out competitive solutions.
All right. Any other thoughts on this, Dominic? I see you kind of raising.
Yeah. Melissa, congratulations by and large. That's wonderful news. One of the questions I had is in Florida Texas, which has been very, very involved for a really long time on efficiencies and ways of getting co-generated energy and encouraging that. As you know, you captured otherwise wasted steam and you from boilers and so forth, and use it back into to regenerate electricity. And it's been a very, very helpful tool. We made sure that our tax policy was aligned with that. So I think, you know, this is one of many. We've gotten very actively involved in solar. I remember I pushed solar back around 2005, 6, 7, and I got a lot of backlash from some of the other utility companies. Florida Power and Light was very, very big on it. And as it turns out, Florida's gotten, you know, really more active. I thought, gosh, we're the Sunshine State. How could we not be involved in, you know, and come to find out we're actually not the Sunshine. There's another state, I can't remember which one, Oklahoma or some other, that has sunshine a little bit more than we do. But long and short, there's good ways that we could find, again, marginal increases here, there, collectively really can help add up and delay construction that could be avoided, but also make more safe and dependable and reliable sources of energy production and distribution. Ultimately saves the customer, and it also helps helps the environment. Not that I'm trying to be Mr. Green here, but anything that can save some of that is always beneficial.
Well, and Florida has such a great environment that you know, we all hope anything that can be done to maintain that.
And,
Is
and just one more point on that is, I mean, you know, whereas, you know, a new nuclear plant, right? Even with expedited permitting, you know, I don't, as far as I'm aware, they haven't been able to build one in less than, you know, 10 years, right? Whereas if you streamline permitting and, you know, with the solar industry as well, you can have, you know, large scale facilities up within you know, and literally generating power within 18 months. So we, you know, in order to meet the demand, the unprecedented demand question that stands before us, we just simply have to have policies and regulations that that are resource and technology neutral, essentially, so that we, you know, we can have access to every available, you know, electron, you know, that can be safely you know, produced, again, not only to meet that unprecedented, you know, growth and demand, but also to ensure, you know, that citizens continue to have access to energy that is affordable and certainly reliable.
all right. Very, yeah, well put. And we're gonna, with the remaining time, move into some audience Q&A. So if people have any questions, please put them into the Q&A chat there. We do have one question, which is about specifically transmission and how to deal with the issues of electric transmission. And Melissa, perhaps I would impose on you. I know that Pelican recently put out a report having to do with ROFR, which is a monstrous acronym, which is not very helpful even when you spell it out in terms of explaining what it is. But it does have to do with competition and, you know, issues of cost for electric transmission. So you want to talk a little bit about that? Oh, and I think you might be muted still.
Sorry, you see me moving around a little bit because I actually wanted to demonstrate copies of our, yes, very proud of the work that we have done on, you know, this important issue, you know, really highlighting the economic implications of, you know, the right of first refusal legislation across the country. Both reports, I would say, are extremely academic and perhaps a little dense, but you know, but it's extremely important, and you know, the response that we receive from folks, you know, from states around the country. I mean, we've seen in states across the country a rise in ROFR legislation, and so we worked, you know, with partners to produce these reports that really highlight the economic implications of these ROFR policies and how they have, essentially by creating barriers to entry and limiting competition, only leads to, inefficient resource allocation. I mean, that's, those are the key takeaways with a whole lot of more, data to back up those conclusions. But that's essentially what we have found, and the data bears that out over and over and over again. So, yes, I would invite folks to visit our website, pelicaninstitute.org, and also happy to share that with you to share with the folks who are on the call today, if you would be willing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We will. This is going to be posted, and we will put a link to the report there and other materials. We don't have any more audience questions. I think people are being a little shy. So perhaps just to close this out, we'll go around, and maybe if everyone just wants to give a closing thought, and also if specifically what you see as the biggest challenges going forward for states when it comes to energy. And Melissa, since you're already there, let's start with you.
Thank you again, for the opportunity to join this conversation today. And I hope that we'll have many more opportunities. I certainly enjoyed hearing from Dominic and Griffin and Ray and about some of the interesting challenges and also opportunities that are taking place in your states. I mean, look, we're very inspired by some of the success, Griffin, that you've had in Texas, which has attracted billions of dollars in private investments for not only new gas powered plants, but large scale batteries and renewables through a competitive market environment that has help keep prices low and reliable, much more so than in monopoly-dominated regions like Louisiana. As the big monopoly utilities here are preparing to spend billions dollars more on new natural gas and plants, and we really desperately need our regulators to really take a very close look at what the implications of that are, particularly on consumer prices, over the next few years. So that would be my closing thought, and we will just continue working the Pelican Institute and with our many other partners and allies in the state to continue elevating the urgency of these issues, and certainly discussions like you all are hosting today are very helpful in that effort. So thank you.
All right, Griffin, we'll go to you next. And I will just say, as a Texan myself, of course, one of the good things about this federal system that we have here is states get to compete with each other for policy, and we can look to each other for policy. So I'm always happy when other states look to Texas. And I will say, to return the favor, when you come to an issue like primacy for Class 6 wells, people in Texas are always talking about, well, Louisiana's ahead of us or whatnot. So that's the competition in action. All right. So with that, Moderator.
Yeah. Speaking of, I mean, that's how that conversation's happening right now at a federal level for Class 6 wells for us. I do think that does touch on one of the last things I wanted to leave here today is we were talking about what our biggest issues are when it comes to energy, and people are saying demand and stuff like that. It's really regulation. I think is some of the main issue. Everything's taken too long because we're making it take too long. For instance, with the Class 6 wells, those are the injection wells or commonly used for carbon capture, something systems like that. Louisiana has primacy over these wells alongside North Dakota, West Virginia, and Wyoming. And y'all collectively have approved, as of 2024, approved of 11 of these wells, while the EPA, who is currently still regulating our Class 6 wells, has approved of only 4. And they have 181 active applications. The reason for this is because for the EPA, they have a goal, not a mandate, of processing these applications within 24 months. It's 2 years. In contrast, we like our deadlines. We like our shot clocks here in Texas. So if we were to be granted primacy, that would be reduced down to an average of 23 days. So we're looking at 24 months or more for the federal government, or here in Texas, 23 days. And what Ray was talking about with shot clocks, I think is one of the big things that we need here across our nation to get the energy that we need in time.
All right, Dominic, sunshine state, if not the most sun, certainly the most sunny disposition.
Yes, sir.
What are your final thoughts?
Again, we're blessed with a lot of better weather than most states by and large, but we do get those massive storms, and they're going to be, we're holding our breath now. We haven't had one really to speak of this year, but we're waiting for the late hurricane season ends November 30th. So we're very, very concerned about that. But the long and short, we are concerned about the grid, and also fortifying things as much as we can, finding alternatives, and encouraging businesses to find ways to economize themselves, use more and more alternatives to the extent that we can, encourage more, solar and other things like that. But again, protecting the grid, absolutely. The first, second, and third priority, I think, in Florida, from both storms and cyber attacks and other man-made attacks.
All right. Thank you very much. And Ray, bring us home.
Yeah, every state should be focused on the simple word more. You need more energy to drive down prices. Look, energy demand is not going to fall with the rise of the tech economy, advanced manufacturing, people using technology for their everyday lives. And so states and countries even that can generate affordable, reliable energy are going to be at a huge economic advantage. We have companies coming to Ohio from Europe because Europe electricity prices have spiked gigantically. That puts them at a competitive disadvantage, not just the United States, but with China, other competing countries. So states need to look at how they can take advantage of their natural resources, whether it be sun, whether it be natural gas, whether it be hydropower, or looking at nuclear geothermal, because we simply need more energy quickly to make it affordable to help their households and their families and their businesses.
All right, very well said. I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us from a variety of locations throughout the country, and in a variety of Wi-Fi compatible settings. And I also want to thank you, the audience, for watching. This is the end of the event. I'm Josiah Neeley. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you all. Appreciate you guys.